Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, members and friends, hello everyone. I hope everyone can hear me. We're all having some technical difficulties. Actually, that's not true. We've got a special guest tonight joining us, but welcome to the Merry Malty virtual tasting. It's my extreme pleasure to be hosting this with you tonight. So I really appreciate you all tuning in. Bring your questions, bring your chit chat, bring your banter. There's Mark Teague with the whiskey glass. He's on it. Look, we've got so many. Someone's saying they're so bummed about missing this still at work. Love hearing the dulcet tones of MB on the mic, though. Reminds me of a better time and place. I like that comment. That's good. Whiskey is my jam. And Facebook user. Yes, big shout out to Darren and Carla, who I hope you guys are doing okay. We've been catching the news about what's happening up in Cairns at the moment, and it's I hope you guys are okay with everything going on there. We have a very special guest joining us for tonight's live stream. But I'm going to do a little bit of a special intro for our special guest. We haven't even made much noise about him joining yet, but just bear with me here. Here's the original four members of Whiskey Roundtable. Some of you may remember. And one of them is, of course, myself. One of them was Scott Fitzsimons. One of them was Alex Dallenberg. But one of them was, of course, Andy Milne on the top left there, who looks after an amazing folio of single malts these days. He also used to do a bit of a work with the SNWS. That's him and Ross serving some Balvenie over at AMWTC, Australian Malt Whisky Tasting Championships, back in 2018. I think that one was taken. We're all older and wiser since then. These days, he's a professional glass sniffer, just like myself, and poses with whiskey, also like myself. So I'm going to bring him in now with that sort of introduction. We'll bring in Andy. Ladies and gentlemen, Andy Milne. Yeah. Do you like my intro?
That's quite the intro. It's I'm impressed. I'm still bitter about that picture from SWS that you put on the bottle and cut out my face right at the end of
the flavour strip I think went over your face on that bottle. Look, I'll raise those concerns with the Lords and Masters in the UK. Don't worry. I'll let them know that was unacceptable. Do you not know who Andy Milne is? I mean, come on, guys. What the hell? Don't you know who I am? No, look, for those playing along, Andy is a bit of a whiskey expert and the single malts guy. I'm going to call you the single malt guy over at South Trade. You look after all the lovely single malts over at South Trade, which includes some of our favourite distilleries at SNWS, such as Old Pulteney and Speyburn, and I'm going to miss one here. You tell me the others. Balblair, of course, yes, awesome. In fact, Andy co-hosted a Balblair night with us some years ago as well, like 2018. It would have been 18 or 19, somewhere around there.
Yeah. Thanks back.
And we've also got, of course, our chair and cellar and New South Wales ambassador here with us as well, who's just had a bit of a technical hiccup, just like I did. So welcome in, AD. Here he is. AD, you made it.
I made it. Audio, visual. It's not happening, but I'm here now. So.
We're all here. We're all ready to rumble. And evening, everyone who's jumped in here. Cancel work. I still think
I'm having might still be having technical difficulties because you're both looking very handsome on my screen here.
Not used to it. Yeah. So Andy's going to taste through these. I've just introduced Andy to our audience, and we're just going to have a bit of a taste through these 5 whiskies included in your packs tonight. For those playing along at home with the actual pack, I just want to make sure I get this right. I'll just quickly show you the order up on screen, left to right. That's what we're sort of going to aim for here. So 42.73, followed by 38.34, 144.5, 4.316, and then the 53.411 to finish to round out the evening. You may want to do the first 2 whiskies side by side. They're both... Look, we're starting the tasting tonight with 2 different 25-year-old single cask whiskies. Just that in itself. We're drinking 82 years worth of maturation in one tasting kit tonight, if you add it all up, which is extremely exciting. A big shout out to everyone who's who's jumped in. A big Merry Christmas to the Godfather, i.e. AD. Yes, hello from Darren and Carla to everyone here. Was Dulcet Cone was Corbin's. Thank you. Yes, evening from a wet Tassie. And a while since we've seen Andy on a stream. Outstanding. And no potato cameras today. No, I have a new camera. I have a new setup. Obviously, not all of it's working. I've had some technical difficulties here today. That's okay. No potato cameras, though. We're trying to remain potato-free zone. Cool. Well, I just have a chat and banter about each one. I don't want to. I don't want to hold things up too much.
God, that's rough.
That is. I'm not putting that one up on screen.
That is rough.
That's a rough comment. Anyway, moving right along. Wow, that's actually no. You know what? It's probably, if you add up AD, me, and Milty together, that's probably 82. Let's just
that'd get close. Yeah,
that'd get close. Yeah, there you go. Let's start with Distillery 42. So we want to crack open our 42. It's so great to have both you guys on for our Merry Malty tasting. This is so exciting to taste through some lovely drams on this evening. Now, this is Quiet Confidence. This had its first appearance as the VIP dram at the Sydney Whisky Fair this year. So it's a 25-year-old whiskey from Distillery 42.
And just to clarify, Matt, is this the 42 starting with T or the 42 starting with L?
Well, that's a very good question. That's a very good question. Now, I actually want to raise this point because the difference between starting with T or L was only properly changed in like 2004 or 2006 and something like that. So there was
the Czech, wasn't it? The distillery started its name as Le Cheg and made two separate malts.
Yeah, but we had peated Tobermory and unpeated Tobermory, and peated Le Cheg and unpeated Le Cheg for a long time. So it was like there was interchange there, which made no sense. But so 25 years ago is actually predates. You're drinking a piece of liquid history in a way, because this predates, and as you know, like the flavor profiles of the society don't work in terms of like, therefore if it's definitely Le Cheg spirit, it has to be in the peated profile. It's based on flavor profile, not anything else. It's very delicate. I mean, it's pretty mid-proof. It's like 49.7% ABV on this one. Corbin says, "Guess who's getting spit in their glass next time they're hosted by AD?" No.
Nah, might be more than spit. might put blended whiskey in the glass.
Wow, shots fired.
Shots fired, yeah.
Yeah, shots fired. And that's Quiet Confidence.
Beautiful nose.
Mm.
And the palate backs it up too. With a wonderful, I'm not trying to be a smartass here, but it does back it up with the Quiet Confidence. It's it works.
That's a delightful drop, isn't it?
Isn't it just, yeah. Like, I reckon this distillery always had a bit of a, what's the word? An unfair reputation. You know, certainly amongst single malt people, it was very fashionable to sort of poo-poo it and say that not everything they turned out was gold. But I don't know, like so many other distilleries, it had a profile and something that it was aiming for to suit its customers and the blenders that wanted its product. And you know,
Well,
25 years later with this spirit, you can go, hey guys, bang on.
I think that's where you say blenders, that's probably hits the mark perfectly. It's their whole portfolio, you know, Deanston as well and Bunnahabhain. It's, you know, all of them in their time have been considered mediocre or sort of certainly poo-pooed for just not being that exciting and that being, you know, that wow, because, you know, Deanston particularly was a blending malt.
Yeah.
I think it's actually indie bottlers that probably put this back on the map 10 years ago. I remember Whiskey Exchange, we released 4 or 5 different 6-year-old Le Chegs, and Whiskey Nectar did a whole selection of 6, 7-year-olds. I think sort of that pass of the casks. I think Sekinda bought some, Carsten bought some, and you know, there was a few sort of Mario in Europe, got a few, and that really kind of reignited Le Cheg as a name. And it, to me, that's ironically now we're trying a 25-year-old. To me, that was some of their best spirit, was the sort of really young 5, 6, 7, you know, fiery PT, but really vibrant, fresh sort of spirit. I think it's taken a long while to sort of then converge back across to the unpeated style that they do. But this is lovely.
Andy, I'm reminded of that era because it would have been about 10 years ago that I got one of those little. It was like a whiskey exchange 200 ml bottle of like 7-year-old Lecheg.
Mm.
And it was like even that black and gold sort of label with the 200 ml sort of like gift shop sized, tourist size, if you like, bottles of to take away of something Lecheg,
We bottled in the shop.
Yeah, bottled in the shop. Sorry, yeah.
That's the golden era where customs didn't realise what we were doing, or SWA didn't.
Yeah. Bottling Scotch whiskey in London. Yeah.
It was fine. It was totally legit.
Yeah, totally fine. Totally fine. Yeah.
I like that we actually asked the Irish body afterwards. We sort of said, do you mind if we do this? And they're like, yeah, fine. Who cares?
Yeah.
So the real difference between SWA and sort of, I forget the name of the body in Ireland, but they really weren't fussed whatsoever. Completely trusted us, and SWA shut us down completely.
Betty Petrie says, "Yum! What a glorious creamy drop." Yeah, it's a real noser. It's like something I definitely want to leave a bit in the glass for later of that one. See how it develops over time. And Darren says, "How many cracker 42s have we seen in just the last 2 or 3 years? Plenty, and glad to have them." Yeah, and actually, it's a good point there. We've seen at the society in the last 2 or 3 years that such a variation of them as well. Like we've seen even younger stuff again, like some great 8-9-year-old stock. Some great teenage stock, some of that 15, 16-year-old peated 42s coming through, and now a couple of we've seen a couple of these older ones, a 25 and a 26-year-old recently in this realm, which is I'm just so grateful to be able to get these.
Now that this has been open for a good 5 minutes, anyone else starting to find there's a lovely tropical fruit note emerging?
Like a rock melon or
exactly rock melon, cantaloupe.
Mm.
Wasn't there earlier.
It's remarkable. And of course,
it's a weird distillery. When you look at the stills, it's evidence of a distillery that bought its stills and then possibly changed the building that it was in over time that affected the roof, but they kept the stills to suit. I've actually just got a photo here that I took when I was there 9 years ago now. Can I share a screen with you?
I'm sure you can if it does. If it lets you.
If it works, we'll give it a go. Let's try this. So you can see how they've turned corners and so on, because at one stage the distillery's roof required it to do that just to fit in. And then when they've done an expansion, like so many other distilleries, they've got to keep the character of the stills or something changes. So they do that. The other really interesting thing about this distillery is the water is incredibly peaty. Not peaty as in smoky, but trace elements of peat. I don't know if you can see beyond, there's these green pipes that are feeding water into the system. This next photo, that is the color of the clear water.
Oh, wow.
And that is drinkable water. It tastes beautiful. I tried it, but it is just has so much elements of peat trace elements in it that it's brown. And they said
so mineralic and just earthy. Yeah.
Earthy. And I was talking to the distillery manager's wife, whose name I just suddenly can't remember on the spot, but she was saying, that's the water you shower in, that's the water that sits in the bottom of your toilet, that's the water you drink when you're brushing your teeth. And that's what you get for being on an island in a peaty area of Scotland.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It probably tastes incredible as well. Once you get over the colour.
And this distillery, for me, so the pub quiz on you, Matt, here. What was the blend that came from this fine distillery?
The blend that came from it. You've got me there. I can't remember.
Be something magical like, Queen of Mull or Dew of Mull, something like that.
You're now doubting Black Bottle.
No, I thought Black Bottle was Isla. Black Bottle was famous for having all the distilleries of Isla.
But there was a lot. I think there was a lot of this distillery that featured in Black Bottle.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
It was certainly, as you say, it was part of the portfolio of the same company, wasn't it?
Yeah. But that was when I first got sort of drinking in pubs and drinking whiskey outside of my parents' cabinet, Black Bottle was the first bottle of whiskey that I went, shit, this is good. And it was probably the start of my sort of actual obsession with whiskey outside of just getting drunk.
Yeah, awesome. I always thought Black Bottle was, in the early days of Black Bottle was predominantly Bamore.
It was definitely sort of heavy peated, but I think it was backed up with Tomori.
My only other anecdote of this distillery is it wasn't that long ago, but like 10 years ago, there was that 15-year-old in the wooden box.
Stunning drop.
Stunning drop. Still one of the best core range whiskies I think I've ever encountered.
Undoubtedly, yeah.
Yeah. A real shame when that one disappeared. And then there was some questionable 10 and 12-year-old releases that followed. All right. Well,
there was a children's TV show filmed on that island as well.
Oh, really?
A terrible theme tune. It was sort of What's the Story in Balamory is the show.
Didn't quite take off like Bluey or
didn't make it internationally. Clearly,
was that like a wannabe version of the Famous Five or something?
It was just one of those daytime generic,
like Round the Twist.
Yeah, it was less Round the Twist, more kind of just that sort of children's program that was more educational than it was sort of.
Oh yeah.
City fun. But they hang around outside all these houses.
Isle of Mull's other claim to fame. Some great comments coming in. Joel Bradbury asks, "Are they all very tanned compared to other Scots?" I think that's for AD's question on the.
I didn't notice that. I have to say.
An interesting comparison, as we love 42s but find the OBs a bit pedestrian, yet we love Lechegs of all ages. Yeah, Essendon have to us been an awesome eye opener as to how good they can be. Yeah, very much so. It is one of those distilleries I find that, as Andy hinted at earlier, that I think a lot of independent bottlers have really pioneered the spirit out of that distillery for a long time, and I think that's something we all very much appreciate. Okay, let's press on. I think we better move on to whiskey number 2. Okay.
So I can name this distillery without naming this distillery and breaking it.
Oh yeah.
I believe we're looking at Glen Grant number 2 here.
So we've opened. We've just for those playing along. Oh, by the way, there's a great article on this distillery written by Andrew Durbridge on our website, which was published in 2019, I think, or 2018, 2019. Anyway,
I think I remember that.
No, you did. I found it today. Don't worry. Yeah, but 38.34, exceedingly exquisite. Ignore the fact that it says extended telomeres on your little bottle there. It was a bit of a typo. Anyway,
a typo. Yeah, we got all 21 letters wrong.
just a minor typo, that one. That's fine. Don't worry about it. One of my favorite stories of this distillery of Glen Grant 2 was one of Robin Lang's stories about how there was a 5-inch pipe bit of plumbing that went between both distilleries in terms of spirit supply of new make supply, and local teenagers used to get a hand drill late at night and drill a hole in the pipe to siphon off new make into their faces and then patch it up with bubble gum. And it wasn't until the light of day, some weeks later, when one of the distillery manager was walking underneath the pipe and spotted about 20 pieces of bubble gum because they kept whenever they went back on Saturday nights, these kids couldn't find the previous hole because it was still dark, and so they'd just drill a new hole in the pipe to steal new make out of it. And so the things you do as a teenager in the area, but it was one of those funny stories about finding a supply pipe covered in chewing gum.
Amongst other things, that story is also a testament to the durability and waterproof and tightness of Scottish chewing gum. Obviously,
they chew different over there. Yeah. So this is a closed distillery, closed, demolished, long gone. So we're drinking something that is truly a piece of liquid history now, and it's a cask strength single cask, 25-year-old. we're enjoying 50 years worth of maturation in the first 2 drams alone tonight.
That's pretty extraordinary, isn't it? When you're 2 drams into a tasting and you've already chalked up 50 years under your belt.
Yeah, incredible. Also worth mentioning that all these bottlings we're drinking tonight are available. And that one's just on the screen right now if anyone wants to scan a QR.
This one's really light for its age.
Yeah. I didn't know whether to do this one or the first one first. I think having them close to each other, being so delicate and so light, because the next 3 after this are very much chewier, heavier kind of whiskies. So this would get washed out a little bit later in the lineup. But
you look at older Glen Grants, and I think it was always interesting to hear the they were there to be the same and basically help bolster additional production for them. But then it never was the same spirit, and it was always slightly different over the years. But this is a 25-year-old Glen Grant. You'd expect to be a lot more citrusy, a lot more a little bit more waxy, maybe.
But they were different. That was the problem, wasn't it? They were different spirits. And so it's what they expected even 25 years later. And 25-year-old Glen Grant 2 versus Glen Grant 25-year-old are very different whiskies.
I think. Well, there must be 3 distilleries now where they've built a replica next door, thinking, "Oh yeah, we'll just duplicate things and double production," and it's just never quite worked out the same.
Well, all of them closed, didn't they? So I can think of one other.
Well, Klein Leash, but what's the third one?
Imperial,
right? Yeah.
Imperial
and Ben Riach, but yeah, obviously Klein Leash and Royal.
I think there are others. There, I'd have to. That's one for the real anoraks. We'll worry about that some other time. I mean, the thing is, the reason we can't name them immediately is because they closed a long time ago when the experiment was found not to have worked.
Yeah, it seems quite a costly experiment to build a new distillery across the road, and in almost all the cases, it's not like it even survived to then be just an additional distillery. All of these have just gone, that hasn't worked, sack it off.
And yet the irony is that's
history that it closed.
The irony is that's exactly what Glenfiddich and Glenlivet have done to expand. When they've needed to expand, they've just built another replica on the same site, and they've kept everything the same. But those ones that built the same thing just across the road or on the other side are the ones that seem to have fallen by the wayside. Maybe by the time Glenlivet and Glenfiddich came along to expand, the industry had learned how to avoid those pitfalls.
Or a bit like even more recently, that recent expansion to Kilhoman is a good example as well. The new still house over at Kilhoman, and it's like, well, should they name it Kilhoman 2 or call it Cappadonic 3? Give it a different name and see what happens. Because it's going to be that's the thing. Even a new still house on the site of Kilhoman, as an example, that spirit is going to be different from their original spirit. So they'll either have to mold those 2 makes together, or shape the new stills to be as close as possible to the past ones. But
just do a Macallan, draw the curtains, and keep on going. I'll cross the line. It's fine.
That was good. That was a good one. Well done.
Matt, you had a photo showing the old distillery just before it was demolished. Bring that up for a moment. So, do you want to know what that looks like right now?
It's a cooperage now, isn't it?
You're close. It looks a bit like this, he says as he clicks share. So it was all bought by Forsyths, who are the still makers.
Ah, right.
And Forsyths have expanded their still making area into this where they used to be, and also now running the very, very good Station Hotel just in the same neck of the woods.
It's something that you guys might know. It baffled me that Pernod bought this in early 2000s, maybe later, but had it for a year and then demolished it. Anyone know why or what what was the logic in purchasing it if it was that?
Didn't it come along for the ride? I mean, they bought obviously
Was it part of
Glen
the
Grant,
package, or-
and Capadonic was just obviously part of the. Whoops, I said the C word. I've broken the rules. This distillery came along for the ride, and then there's other examples of that too. I'm trying to think. It's a bit like when LVMH bought Glenmorangie and Ardbeg, and Glenmurray came along for the ride, and they quickly decided they didn't need that as part of that wasn't part of the big picture plan either. So,
one quick blend of Ardbeg and Glen. Was it Ardbeg and Glenmorangie they did?
Oh, the wonderful serendipity.
That's
serendipity.
Right.
I did actually taste that whiskey. It was very confused, I have to say.
It's a weird whiskey. Yeah.
Betty Petrie says she's tasting honey. Oh, yeah, it's a very honey dram, that one.
Yeah.
Very honey. I'll agree with that. And Darren says, by the way, awesome article in the Malt Whiskey Yearbook, which, of course, AD has an article in this year's yearbook. I think I've lost track of how many times I've said you should get the yearbook. Get it every year.
Yeah, except that's last year's you're holding up, but never mind.
I do have the 24 copy here somewhere. I'm holding the wrong. Oh wait. There we go. So yeah, it's get the Andrew's got an article in the yearbook. It's a great read, and appreciate the feedback. Yeah.
Thank you.
For the session. Yes, thank you.
Did anyone add water? Anyone in this, the three of you, or anyone at home add water to this? I haven't, and I don't feel a need to.
No, I'm with you. I don't think there's.
I'm not inclined to. No.
I think that the flavors are so delicate and soft that when it's sort of that light and that sort of it's floral, it's honey, it's orchard
already
fruits.
Yeah, it's already right on 50.6 as well. It's
exactly
yeah.
Which isn't that funny? Like in our language, that's low. So we think, you never had water, and yet we forget that 50% of the people drinking whiskey will go, oh, that's more than 40, and want to water it down. So
50, I'd say it's like 90%.
I was being generous.
No, Betty hasn't added water either. I'd love to hear comments of who's added water to this one and who hasn't.
Because I'm intrigued to get your thoughts on this. So you bottle everything at cask strength?
Almost everything, yes.
So when you're bottling, are you looking for an age? Are you looking for a flavor profile? Because when we were working with specialty and we were bottling, we weren't bottling certainly Elements of Ireland. That wasn't at cask strength. It was reduced on 2 degrees, 3 degrees maybe, but just to that point where it's just like, actually, this is a much better whiskey here that you can just drink and you don't need to add water, but still has that cask strength sort of approachability, sort of balance. Do you look for that sort of balance when you're tasting profile and sort of looking for the whiskies you want to bottle? Are you looking at going, I want it to be sort of a little bit harsh, but know that you can water it down? Or if it's still a bit harsh, you're like, actually, let's mature it longer or re-rack it or something?
It was a combination of both. It was, take this at face value. It is what it is. And if you want to add water, if we felt it was harsh and felt it needed a year or two, it went back to the warehouse for a year or two. There was certainly, until more recent years when we've come out with these special releases at 50% or whatever, it was what it was. And you would judge it on its own merits. Is this a good whiskey? Is it worth bottling? And the strength just came along for the ride. It wasn't bottled to suit a strength profile or requirement.
And same even now with sometimes I know that sometimes whiskies will change or be extra matured or whatnot, or be matured longer to fit a different flavor profile, but otherwise generally not. I mean, it's, as Andrew said, it just the proof came along with it.
Yeah.
Big shout out to Klaus from our SMWS Swedish team. Good to see you, Klaus. Thanks for joining in. And of course, no water here. If it ain't broke, don't fix it for us. Yeah, very delicate. It is very delicate, and is what you'd expect from a whiskey that's had 25 years. of maturation, which is kind of exciting. It's a second fill ex bourbon
I
barrel.
was going to say, is the cask information on the bottle correct?
Yeah, no. Just the name. I know why that name's happened. I know why that's happened, and it's frustrating. But
There's a preview of a future release, is it?
No, you can thank the TTB in the US as to why these things happen sometimes. It's all the US branch why these things happen, and it's a bit frustrating, but that's the way it goes. Yeah, cool. Yeah, so they probably there's something would have blocked it from being called telomeres in the US. Maybe some US it's that whole thing about not allowed to let people know that there's not actual extra DNA strains in this whiskey, so so you've got to rename it to something like exceedingly exquisite. One of my favorite all-time favorite blocks of a whiskey into the US branch was that, Andrew, you might remember there was a 7 dot something we had a few years ago called Witchcraft.
Yeah,
and it got blocked on the US branch because it might invoke the occult, and we can't let American consumers think that they'll gain extra powers from drinking this whiskey. So good fun.
No, only happened in that country, really, can't it?
Between that and our friends at Disney clamping down on one of the names we came up with, that was God. The other one.
And the subsequent mess that happened from that. It was called Baby Yoda, this whiskey we had, Andy, and we had to wait, 9 months, 10 months for the new labels to arrive. And we instructed the warehouse to please put the new labels, which was called Punchy Peter, on top of, take off the old label and put the new label on top. And the warehouse missed the first part of that instruction, so they just put the new label on top. And then when all the bottles arrived at members' doorsteps, they just took the new label off. Well, that was fruitless anyway. Doesn't matter. Dear, oh dear. Hello, Dave Cook. Good to see you. Only Americans, yes. Long live Baby Yoda. Yeah, that was a 5-year-old 122. It was a 5-year-old heavily peated from Distillery 122. That was good fun.
It was tasty too.
That was tasty. Punchy Peter was good. That was going back to Andy's example of young peated whiskies that work really well. That was fantastic.
So with Klaus on board in the stream, the next whiskey seems quite appropriate.
It does. Let's move on to whiskey 144.5.
As does the conversation on name changes.
Yeah, well, I mean, this one's had a slight update to the name, but only in semantics, not in name, thankfully.
In name as well.
No, 1980s roast dinners.
No, but the distillery changed its name, didn't it?
Yeah, that's what I've got a photo here showing what it used to be called. There you go. Used to be called Box. But we're going to go with 1980s roast dinners, 144.5. Now, I'd like everyone to approach this whiskey, and I mean this, with a very open mind, because this is not your typical sherried whiskey. This is a bit different. This is like, how many of you can safely say, like, those tasting this and say, first of all, I've had Swedish whiskey before. Okay, have you had single cask strength Swedish whiskey? And have you had an 8-year-old, which is old for New World whiskey, an 8-year-old full maturation first fill ex-sherry hoggy of Swedish whiskey? It's totally like that. I get so much of that Bonox umami roast beef notes out of this.
You're being very kind.
I was very excited to see this on the list because we took on distribution of Box in the UK just shortly before I moved away. So we had a lot of exposure, and I think we kind of launched in the UK. We launched Box at Whiskey Show.
Yep.
The most loveliest people, and they were just always a fun bunch. Swedes are hectic to drink amongst. They are the scariest. They're just full of energy, vigor, and have a huge propensity to drink. And so when they turn up en masse to a whiskey show in London, and you've just got this huge crowd, and you're just like, oh shit. When you end up in a pub with them afterwards, you just know that your liver's not going to be the same for the next few days. But I haven't actually tasted any of their whiskey since I left London. So it's been 6-7 years.
We literally have the expert on it in the chat right now. Klaus runs tastings with the entire SMWS Christmas box on Tuesdays at 7:00, and then we evaluate the bottles with the water and with water, so everyone can discover for themselves what happens and if they like it. That's great. Yeah, and Klaus is agreeing with you very diplomatically. Yes, we love our whiskey. Yeah, that's an understatement. I've met enough Swedes in the whiskey game, and they are fanatic about it. Sometimes it's great.
I think one of their big festivals is on a cruise ship, and everyone that came back was always broken because they did it in, I think it was 2 sessions or 3 sessions, and so you run the whiskey festival in the day, and then there's a big party on the boat and a disco and karaoke and everything else, and so they all go and they have their 2 days on the boat, drink and go like carnage, dock, and then the next wave of people come in, Cinderella cruise, that's it, and they're all off again and do it again. So if you're a rep and they're standing talking about your whiskeys, you've got to do this twice in a row, but you can't leave. So you do end up going to the parties with them and then just partying on the boat for 5 days straight, and no one comes back the same.
No one comes back the same. You're a changed human by the end of this event. Your physiology has changed. Good fun. Good fun.
Well, I'm going to add water to mine because
I'll give that
I'm
a go.
finding it. Well, at the risk of going against the flow, this is quite sulfured to me. Sulfur, which I'm not particularly enjoying, and it's also hot. So I'm hoping water might do something to ameliorate that.
It's quite it is very bonoxy. It's very beef soup, beef consomme, sort of like which is often some of the tasty notes of sulfur. I don't get some of the. It is I get a bit of cask sulfur absolutely, but it's more of that sort of like gravy and herb and bread sauce kind of stuff. But it's not that rotten egg sulfur, which is that really bad consomme. Yeah, it's like smelling the roasting tray after the beef and potatoes have been served up and the pan is about to be deglazed. Yeah, that's a good call. Very good tasting note. Call that one. And that's why it's named Cinderella, says Klaus. David Gilk says this is really interesting. Definitely get the dark sweet grape and the sherry note, but then the heavy meaty Gravox stuffing and sulfur notes. It feels more December in Sweden than December in Australia. Yeah, well, it was December malt of the month for us.
That sulfur is just a bit too much for me. I'm going to park that there and enjoy YouTube banter about this for a bit.
But how many distilleries have we got now in Sweden?
I think making whiskey, I thought it was like 6 or 7, but I might be. There's probably people in Sweden saying how many whiskey distilleries are making whiskey in Australia, and they're probably saying 6 or 7 as well.
Yeah,
but I'm probably well out on that number. I'm probably well out.
The 2 I can think of is Box, and I think actually Kiro, but I'm not sure if that's Sweden.
Klaus, if you're still watching, it looks like you are. Let us know how many distilleries there are in Sweden, especially the ones. How many distilleries are making whiskey or have plans to make whiskey or have whiskey on market?
You can actually make them yourself,
12.
But you got to go to IKEA.
Oh, imagine that! Imagine if IKEA sold like a distillery starter kit, and it's $49.99, and it comes with a 1 litre still. It's like,
imagine making your distillery and doing your first run and then having an Allen key and 2 screws left over at the end.
Like, oh no, I've missed something crucial here. And 144 also featured Saturday at the Hobart Crawl. Yes, that looked like a bloody great event. Really good crowd came out.
I saw the photos for that. That looked a lot of fun.
Yeah, that was great. And Tom's still rocking some of his old UK society clothing, which is great. His staff vest and jackets. It still would take me 8 months to build. It's just easier to get a copper still, isn't it?
I think the more this opens up, it's taken that sort of sulfur is going away more into meatiness.
Yeah, a bit of air now, a bit of air and a bit of water has
not. It's kind of sort of malt lac, but What was the other in that Flora Fauna series? Was Dao Yuan? That was very kind of.
Dal Ewan was heavily sherried when in the early, certainly in the early 2000s. It was a nice drop.
But the Flora and Fauna had that kind of earthy, kind of meaty kind of vibe to it as well.
I'm with you. I think Mortlock was certainly the front runner with that style, which gosh, is what the distillery is known for.
Closer to like that earlier 16-year-old Flora and Fauna than like
And is this kind of character purely coming out of the sherry cask, or is this now the sort of the house style for High Coast?
No, I don't think this is the house style. We've had a couple of 144s High Coasts before. We had a peated one. I think it was also 8 years old. A couple of years ago. That was not like this at all. I think a lot of that's coming from that cask.
I remember the peated one we had. It had wonderful notes of spearmint and peppermint through it.
Yeah, it was super clean. It was a very clean peat. It was like a white smoke kind of thing. It was rather than a coal smoke. It was great. But anyway, this is something a bit different. We've been the whole point of this as well. I mean, we've been throwing some actual proper curveballs at Malt of the Month this year, which has been really fun to see. Like we started the year with a Canadian whiskey. We had a Australian cask release with the Full Bloom in March, which is a long-term project that I was involved from the beginning, which is great to see that come about. And then finishing the year with something from Sweden, which is kind of a bit weird and wonderful and wacky as well, which is great.
No, cool. It's the quality is there across the world now. I think it's one of the other malts that I look after of Paul John is one of the hardest things to talk to people about, because more often than not, people say whiskey, India. No,
yeah.
It's still, we're a long way from outside of local markets. Yeah, I think Australian whiskey globally probably isn't that well known outside of a couple of key markets. So it's good to see more international distilleries that are producing great things outside of their own countries.
It's funny. I had this. I think it was on a chat thread on Twitter or something the other week about. I think there's that thing where people associate certain flavor profile or certain flavor notes with certain countries of whiskey, and so when someone tastes a Japanese whiskey and they say, "Oh, I get cherry blossom," or someone tastes an Indian whiskey and says, "Oh, I get curry notes," it's like, I mean, I don't know how true that is. I don't know how much of that is just like, oh, that's what I associate the food and culture or flavor in that region, and so it's. And I don't.
But if you cast your mind back 10 years ago, there were a lot of Australian whiskies where the first tasting note you reach for was eucalyptus. So there's got to be something in that. I mean,
yeah,
that is true. Yeah.
There's one flavor that I've learned doesn't need to belong in whiskey. That I don't think since we've last done any streams I've sort of talked to you about is Sakura.
Sakura as a tasting note,
as a cask,
right? And why is that?
It's the worst flavor I've ever tasted in whiskey. It's just.
I think I've got a bottle of Sakura bitters here somewhere.
Bitter's great because it is bitter and wild. But
it's right here on my desk.
Yeah, it's just such a weird. And I tried one selection from distillery and it was bad.
Who's maturing in Sakura?
I've been presented about 5 or 6 different distilleries from Japan over the last few years. And initially I thought it was just one producer that was just bad, and then more and more has come through, and I'm just like, nah, this is just, it's just overpowers the whiskey, and you just get this horrible sort of flabby cask.
Just a comment from Klaus. If you like this, you should try Distillery 145. We've had some 145s through as well, Klaus. So our members are well looked after from Sweden at the moment. And some notes of garlic naan and butter chicken. Yeah, it takes a bit of time in the glass. By the way, guys, Andrew, can I get get you guys just to pick up the 38 again from the previous whiskey and just have a smell of that glass? What's happened to that in the last 20 minutes?
Woo!
Wow.
Crikey.
That's taken a different turn, hasn't it? That's a very complex whiskey. That's just, I'm going to let that sit a bit longer and see how much further along the path it gets.
That's actually smelling and tasting like the bubble gum they were using to plugging the pipe.
The new make passed over the gum and it says influenced that spirit forever. Ooh, those teenage mouths.
Tell me you don't get bubblegum notes on that.
No, I absolutely do. I absolutely do. They get like pink bubblegum, like not like big red, not like cinnamon or anything or mint.
No,
but like that.
Hubba
like
bubba.
pink,
Hubba
pink
bubba. Absolutely. Hubba bubba.
That's wild.
Amrit will eventually put out curry staves or something like that. By the way, I love their experiments. Okay. Probably. And the other Swedish bottling on Saturday from 150 was from Distillery 151. Yes, I love the 151s. We've had 2 casks from Distillery 151 so far, and they're so good. And Suntory do a
great distillery.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, we do love Distillery 151. It's and Suntory do a Sakura Harmony release, which is actually not bad, but it's done with a great subtlety. Okay.
I will seek it out.
Seek out a dram, not a bottle. Don't risk the biscuit.
I've got a mortgage today. I can't afford a bottle of Suntory.
I don't think you're alone there, my friend.
Dear oh dear. Okay. Shall we press on? This next whiskey is a distillery that we've had a long association with at SNWS. In fact, this photo was taken at an SNWS event, which was where the global brand ambassador Mark Vardson was hosting members through Distillery 4. I'm going to do my best not to say the distillery name. He's a scary-looking bloke who's an actual Viking who runs a Viking brand. It's one of the distilleries that still does a bit of floor malting. And some sexy-looking stills. And we have 4.316 to enjoy and discover all the lovely spirit that we get out of these guys. Not a genuine, quote, philosophical, end quote, paradox.
Are you?
No, go ahead. Sorry.
Very back to my sort of happy side with your dick move in champs, putting both of them on.
You're very, very welcome and get stuffed.
Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah, not over that, but it's cool.
Good. Just checking. Where you have just the 10 and the 12-year-old in the same lineup just to really mess with you.
And you really did mess, because I think the interesting factor was I knew they were both Highland Park. I know rich. And so I went on quality, and I thought the better quality is probably, the more complex whiskey is probably the 12-year-old. And I was completely wrong, and it was the opposite way around. And it was, the more interesting whiskey was the 10. It's a distillery that I think in the 2010 decade, I was really unexcited by it. I thought it was, it was just
with those bottles as well. Those oval, where they started really leaning into the whole Viking marketing and the oval bottles.
There was certainly some not very exciting, mediocre stuff that came out in that era.
Yeah, and there was a whole series of, but I think even the core range was just a bit. It was, you compare it against previous, decades of their bottlings, and it just wasn't as exciting.
The 12-year-old fell off a cliff. It was, no comparison.
And it's lovely to see those cycles, because I think most distilleries do have that. I think it's the one key thing I've always said to a lot of people is don't write off a distillery from one bad bottling, because our Beg 10 was pretty average for a period of time, and then it went to being pretty decent again. It's everyone has a sort of moment in time, and things sort of slip of what that business's focus is on. But Highland Park, flying back, and really impressed with what they're doing on that.
It's funny you say that, Andy. I was talking to Lachlan Watt from Whiskey and Almond, who was recently saying that even like more recent like society casts we've been seeing through in the last couple of years, including this one that he remarked on, have become even more farmyardy and even like savory, and like this it reminded him of a certain other distillery like in Islay, which was interesting. But he said this is like they've become much more, and I'm getting that straight away on the nose on this. I'm getting that sort of like hay bales, cow shit, farmyard machinery sort of notes, like tractor parts and which I love in a whiskey. I love that note in a whiskey. I get that out of some like Campbelltown whiskies, and I get that out of this kind of style of whiskey as well. It's kind of sweet at the same time. But it's not overbearing. It's not like overly cloying or anything.
It's really funny, and to Andy's point earlier, and you just said it's sweet as well. Wind the clock back 2 decades. Anytime you were talking about a whiskey from this distillery, you would always find a descriptive note, and you would add the words "as well." It's got this as well and this as well, because it was the great all-rounder, and that was Michael Jackson's great stamp on this this distillery. You look at his malt whiskey companion in the very first edition in 1989. The second one, the third, even by the fifth one in 2002, he was still calling it the great all-rounder. It had a little bit of everything. And I think that's why we really noticed that drop-off, Andy, when it came in the late 2000s and 2010s, where it lost its way. But to be fair, it was on a very high pedestal. It was a bloody good whiskey.
It's always the hardest when you sort of that high up as a benchmark, that one slight difference and you're knocked down pretty hard. But you also I don't recall seeing much Highland Park purely in bourbon cask.
No, that's very true. Yeah, you're right. In fact, certainly if you go to the distillery and do any of their tastings where they take you through the whole flight, all you hear about is the increasing percentage of sherry that gets used as you go up each age statement.
Yeah, I think if anything, it would have been their Orcadian series, or the Valhalla series, was it? I think it was, yeah. I think there was a couple of those that were in flashy green bottles.
Was that like fire and ice and those strange ones?
Yeah, yeah, that's the ones. I'm pretty sure they were. There was a couple of those in bourbon cask, but I don't think I ever tried any of those. But it's really interesting seeing the spirit in bourbon. I think it's much more delicate than you would. I think if you tried that blind, I don't know if you'd straight away jump to Highland Park, because it doesn't have that classic kind of mildly sherry.
This is a photo taken from the Scotch Malt Whisky Society, our ultimate tour to Scotland in 2014. Peter Clements took this photo. Actually, Peter was the Society state manager for Western Australia at the time. He came along, and we actually got to walk among the kiln. We were there on a Saturday, and they don't do their kilning on a weekend, so we had the chance to wander through. Actually, I'm going through random. I don't even know what's coming up next, but there you go. That's me outside the kiln. and these are Peter's photos. I've forgotten what was in these. Let's have a quick look back. There's the mesh floor. So these are all society members there. And, one of the old maltings floors down below.
Amazing.
And Peter hard at work.
That's fantastic. I really love the nose on this. I've tasted it a couple of times. I'm going to try it with a drop of water, see how it goes. It's 61.3. It is natural cask strength.
It doesn't taste 61 though, does it?
No, it doesn't. It tastes like 54, 53.
Yeah, 100%. Sorry, 61.3%.
Yeah, 61.3%. Yeah. I agree with you, 61.3% of this. Yeah, this is great. The water doesn't destroy it, but I don't think it needs it.
Yeah.
That's remarkable. Some great comments coming in. Klaus said he had a tasting last week with 4330, 4279, 4290, 463, 473, 4299. That was a fine evening. I bet that looks like a killer lineup. I do love distillery verticals where you get to taste 6 different single casks and really explore all the flavors that each cask imparts. And Relaxed Panda says, I remember trying Tarred and Feathered. It was a 4 from the Society at last year's Whiskey Abbey. It was a highlight and case in point how good HP can be. Yeah, I thoroughly agree. That was probably me or myself or Alex that poured that dram for you. It's a lovely spot, that one. Love this one, and great with water, Matt. Yeah, I've just tried it with water. It works. It works both with and without this one. And doesn't need much, just a few drops, just to bring it to the actual what we think of, like the 54% probably. And a perfect example from Darren and Carla here of how Society bottles reveal character long lost by mass production. Yeah, that's a good call. I mean, it's pioneering that sort of difference in showcasing the spirit. It's even in the marketing of it. It doesn't have the words Highland or Park anywhere on the bottle.
Brings out citrus if you add water. Lemon
it becomes a lot more delicate.
Yeah,
it's quite interesting.
I would very easily smash through some of that.
Yes,
that's a fun drinker. That's a fun summer drinker. That one. Lovely. It was Alex. That guy.
At least they get better chat that way.
Absolutely slammed. Just absolutely better chat that way. I don't think so. He's not on this stream, so I can say no. That's not true.
You would.
I'm really harsh, but especially given that
absolutely harsh.
You made the effort to do a whole photo slideshow of me at the beginning, and I'm just coming here and.
Yeah. I put an effort in for your introduction. That's the last time I ever do that. You know what? You've been introduced now for the next.
The first time you've ever done that as well. So it's.
You wouldn't want to be sensitive tonight, would you?
No. AD about his age and you and me about my chat. You know what? That's it. We're done. We're going to roast Milne before we finish up tonight. That's okay. I'm just going to prepare. That isn't half bad. Okay, I'll take that. Enjoy says, Klaus, no Vikings need apply. This is great. Yeah. Good banter. I did encourage banter in the chat tonight, so that's fair. That's lovely. We've had a good string of 4s through. We've got a good string coming up as well. So it's please don't ever complain about the great availability of cask strength Orkney Spirit, because it's plentiful and it's great. Thick-skinned team. You have to be in this game. Put yourself on camera long enough, Cool.
See you, Klaus.
See you, Klaus. Good to see you, mate.
At the risk of leaping ahead, as much as I was enjoying that there's a 53 coming next, so I had to move on, and I've picked up 53, and oh my gosh, I could nose this for quite some time, and classic example of club refill.
Let's have a look at some recent sexy photos. Here we go. Here's the new refit. Glorious.
That previous photo was a great one because it's one of the rare angles, if you go back one of the rare angles where you actually see the third pap of Jura. Everyone talks about the 2 paps. There's a third one, a bit like that James Bond film with the guy that had 3 nipples. But
I thought that was Total Recall.
No, that was a different line again. But you might remember the guy said, "Maybe you make me wish I had 3 hands." That was the.
Oh, yeah. Every time you mention 3 nipples, I just think Total Recall. I don't think Bond on that one. But yeah,
it was Scaramanga and the Man with the Golden Gun. But
right.
There you go. I'm showing my James Bond nerdiness here. Let's move on. Sorry, I cut you off there. Let's enjoy these recent modern photos of distillery number 53.
That's okay. No, I was just showing some of the more recent refit of what's been happening over at 53, because last time Derbs and I featured a 53 on the tasting, I showed some concept drawings of what was been happening over there, but what's been actually completed ever since, which is that whole part of their new experience of showcasing the 4 big distilleries for them, which is their Glenkinchie, Kalila, Cragganmore, and
Clynelish.
Clynelish. Thank you. So it's all very, very slick.
It's all about the striding gent these days, isn't it?
It really is all about that striding gent. Keep walking, as he says.
There's a new, I'd say new. It's a pop up in Sydney in the Pitt Street Mall. There's a Johnny Walker Blue little experience you can go into.
Yeah, right.
I was there, but I kept walking.
Okay, that was good. I saw you posted a photo somewhere, Debs. I think it was on your Instagram or something of you visited recently.
I did. It was just an easy joke, but yeah, no, it was a good experience. If you're a fan of Johnny Walker and want to try a few of their range and certainly get stuck into the blue, it's a good little spot if you're in Sydney. So in the Pitt Street Mall.
Yeah, awesome. Hashtag Team Refill, absolutely. Hashtag Team Refill, an 11-year-old refill ex-bourbon hoggy. Oh, I love that note that it says on the bottle, which I totally agree with. That burnt cream sauce.
Oh yeah,
like that idea of like a burnt cream sauce over like a salmon and haggis with burnt cream sauce. That's just fantastic.
I'm going to see your burnt cream sauce and raise you burnt marshmallows on the fire.
Burnt marshmallows, yeah,
slightly
over toasted, yeah,
over toasted charcoal marshmallows.
John asks, "Good to see John. What happened?" You mean with Kalila? Yeah, it had a bit of a refit, a bit of an upgrade. It's had, if that's what you're mentioning, sorry. The whole visitor experience has been upgraded and turned into this beautiful new site.
And is that just an extension to the distillery? They haven't just
yeah.
Because I always found Kalila was the least exciting distillery on Isla, purely on scale, which is unfair to say. And I completely said you caveat this with it's being harsh on Kalila, but you go to every other distillery and it's Lagavulin's tiny, Ardbeg is pretty relatively small. Lefroy, they're all small white buildings. Your classic sort of Isla distilleries, and then you go to Kalila and it's just behemoth, and it's a massive still room looking out onto the sea, and it's a workhouse distillery, for a long time for them before they actually, was it 2011 they started bringing out mock. Later than that even.
But it's probably more than that, Andy. You did right with your point, but the other thing too is all those other distilleries have kept to some extent or another part of their original 19th century buildings and construction, and you get to Distillery 53 and here's this factory that got built in 1967 or 68, whenever it was, or was it 72? In any event, and it's just glorious late 60s, early 70s architecture that that's a euphemism for something that's just ugly, and it's hard to sort of fall in love with the space. But I think any distillery visit is a function of your experience, your taste, and the people around you. I've been to this distillery, 7 or 8 times. Let me tell you about an experience that was just amazing. We took a bunch of Australians across for the Ultimate Whiskey Tour in 2017, and we had a day where we'd gone to 3 or 4 distilleries. It was the very end of the day. We were catching the ferry back the next day. This distillery wasn't on the list. And I said to the group, well, do you want to just drive down to number 53 and we can just say we've been there and you can stay there. We got in at 7:15 at night. We went down to the pier where you just saw some of those photos taken, just so people could say, yeah, we've walked on the grounds. And we were standing there and this guy started walking towards us with a bottle in his hand and a couple of little plastic cups. And it was the distillery manager. And he said, look, I couldn't help noticing you turned up. It'd be a crime for you to come here and not have a dram. And he poured out Kalila 18-year-old for us on the spot. And that was he just made 12 Kalila brand ambassadors in that moment. We all thought, what an amazing place.
And with the spirit itself, it's probably one of my favorite spirits from Isla. I think it's versatile, it's flexible, it can be many things. and it's great at 5-year-old and 30-year-old.
Sure.
And keep putting it in refill.
Yeah.
And in sherry cask, I have to say, I reckon this distillery goes beautifully in a clean sherry cask. Matt, would you just bring up the previous comment from Darren about Edinburgh?
Just going back a bit. Here we go. We'll pay that AD. Edinburgh has a new Walker bar to a very impressive looking experience.
Yeah, so I actually popped into that place last September, and it's called the Princess Street thing, and it's 3 levels of Johnny Walker, and every single malt that Diageo owned. It is an incredible experience, and depending on which floor you want to go to, you end up paying more for some pretty special experiences. But look, it's about educating punters about getting into Scotch. You get a blended experience, but I found as someone with my level of knowledge and interest in the subject, it was certainly worth going to. So for anyone who goes to Edinburgh and you think, Johnny Walker experience, is that worth going along to? Yeah, I do recommend it. It's a great visit.
Yeah, it's a very slick experience, as other people said here. It's very slick, yes. And David Gilk says another super solid Society 53. There's a reason why it gets called Mr. Consistent. Delicious, oily spirit, some really nice touches of chocolate, cream, and fruit. Yeah, that's actually one of my favorite 53s this year. I'll be honest. That's fantastic. It's super interesting. And 53 will always be the underdog. No Isla glamour, but they bring it when they're allowed to shine. Not to mention most affordable among Isla, in my humble opinion.
Do you remember that there was and Andy, you might be able to speak to this, that there was a vibe that everyone in Whiskeyville just kind of subscribed to 10, 15 years ago, and it's still going strong. And it was always this thing that there was something about independent Kalilas that just shone above the official bottling range. And that's not necessarily to poo-poo the OB range. It's great. But if you really wanted to see this distillery truly shine at its highest, you had to turn to the independents. And I don't think that's changed. And, maybe the society bottlings kind of still speak to that. Did you sort of encounter that or see that in your
100%? Yeah,
sector?
I think the variety was there in the independents, and Mock was created as a bartender's whiskey, and that's really the angle that Diageo took hard and fast. It was not going into whiskey shops; it was going into whiskey bars and the best cocktail bars and saying, "This is a single malt that you can mix and make cocktails with." So it instantly fell out of favor with any whiskey fans because you're talking about it in the same aspects as you're talking in a Johnny Walker, and you talk in a blended whiskey. So it didn't have that finesse. 12 was pretty much impossible to get a hold of for quite a period of time, and 18 was pretty expensive. So the availability of Kalila for a long time was. In most shops, if they had anything, it was Mock and 25-year-old or Mock and 18-year-old. And so it wasn't exactly a case of, there's loads of different things I can try. And the independent bottlers, there was a bit of a secrecy. A lot of them weren't bottling it under the name Kalila. But everything independently bottled that was Isla single malt, there was this strong suggestion that the large majority of it was Kalila. And everyone went mad for it.
Great comment from Betty. Yes, 53 is my favorite. Aaron says 53 for the win. Can't go past A53. Yeah, absolutely. Even a testament to what independent bottlers have done with that distillery is even the number of casks the numbered cask we're trying right now. 53.411. That's 411 casks passed by the tasting panel in 40 years. That's a lot of whiskey.
Did 53? I bet they've gone through, I think, 2. They may have even gone on to their 3rd expansion program. Are they now churning out? Is it 7 or 8 million litres a year?
If only there was a book with a great article written to examine that number that we need to pull out of it.
I remember when they made the leap to 5, but I got a feeling they went further up to 7 or 8. What's their latest number?
6.5.
6.5. Okay. So yeah, to your point, Milne. What's the next biggest on Isla? Drops down to 3.2 or something, doesn't it, for Lagavulin? Lefroy at 3.2.
Yeah, Lefroy's like 3. That was always at 3 something. Yes,
And
3-3. 3-3.
3-3.
And they
Yeah.
barely sell any private car. Like they're not doing much for blenders, really, are they?
Yeah. So when you look at what, and as you say, all the other distilleries on Islay are very small, so their churn out is so much less. So if Lafroig's doing 3.3, and everyone else is smaller than that, so when you've got Carlila coming along at 6.5, that's the stuff that the independents are going to be able to get their hands on, which the other guys can't.
And the smallest one that we had tonight would have been Distillery 42 with 1.2 million.
Right.
There you go.
I remember when Kilhoman was ramping up to push out 600. That was a big number for them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is updated with the obviously latest numbers, but they're still at 650 or something. It says here.
Right.
650, yeah, 650 Kilhoman, yeah. And of course, the biggest ones, the big ones.
21 are they up to now?
Yeah, 21 for Fiddick and Livet.
Yeah, right.
And 15 for Red Curtain. Well,
and a very good evening, and thank you to our good friends at Edrington.
Good friends at Edrington. We love the spirit we get from you. Actually, we really do. So please don't.
So we do,
video.
truly.
No, yeah. Please do not watch this video. That actually concludes the formalities for this evening. I really appreciate.
I stopped being formal an hour ago. Bloody hell.
No. An hour and 13 minutes of formalities is when we hit the vibe. But I really appreciate everyone tuning in, buying a pack, being a part of our Merry Malty tasting, virtual to end the year. It's been a big year at 2023 for the Society. We're really looking forward to next year's, what's happening at next year at the Society. I normally take this moment to show a slide of what's happening next year, but I don't have that because I'm not nearly organised enough to have that on the slide. So I'm just going to say that we're looking forward to a great year ahead. I'll just throw a few more of the comments up on the slide. Minimum 6.5. Still living in that vibe here, AD, says Relax Panda. The 53, the stuff Johnny keeps on walking with. You can do a lot with walking with 6.5 million litres. That's true. Thanks to the night. Thanks to the night, says Dov. Remember, I want to report of that cake. Oh, yeah, we'll chat, Dov. We'll chat. And time to order 53. Thanks for a great year, guys. Yeah, really appreciate it. We'll see you for the next virtual back in January. And Andy Milne, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it. Just a bit of banter and a bit of chat.
I need to jump in on behalf of all members. Can we thank you for your fantastic efforts this year, running the virtuals every month, putting it all together. It's been a fantastic program. For those watching at home who can't get along to our events, it's just been an amazing experience to try the whiskies and try stuff you won't get along, and also just be part of the fantastic Society community. So, Matt, thank you for your fantastic efforts.
Thank you, AD. Really appreciate it. And we've got to vote for Andy coming back. Andy needs to be here more. Yes, come on, Milne. You want to be a part of it? Come on.
Happily.
Awesome. And thanks to Aaron. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in tonight. It's been really great to have you all on for this evening, and we'll see you all soon.
Merry Christmas, folks.
Merry Christmas, folks. See you soon.
Cheers, guys.